We are looking at the sun at 193 angstroms. Before we get into the features, I want to bring up something else, as there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes, folks. Number one, we are going to be creating a nonprofit organization. Number two, I am headed back into the world of bike racing. Now, I started bike racing in 1997. I don't progress through things the normal way. I'm looking to raise $5,500 by May 1st in order to get me back where I need to be, because I need a new road bike. And I'm going to be doing a lot of stuff I can't afford this year. And the channel's going to be doing a lot of new stuff that it can't afford this year. So, we're looking to raise $5,500 for my new road bike. Now, I began bike racing in 1997 on the mountain bike. I spent half of 1997 racing. And then I spent the whole season in 98 racing. By 99, I was at the regional pro level. I missed the 2001 season due to an injury where I was struck by a truck while training. And then in 2001, I made it back and advanced through some road and track racing. And now I'm right on the Pro-Am cusp at all times. So I live in a cycling mecca known as Trexlertown. And if you could please donate to us, we would appreciate it. Also, we do have links in the description of this video to not only this site, but also our PayPal if you want to donate to the channel directly, or if you want a subscription service, use Patreon. We are a team that has current world champions on the team. Kim Geist and Kim Zubris are currently rainbow jersey wearers in the Madison and the UCI World Championships. And we've got all kinds of sponsorship that's kicking off right now. And the new kits are going to be coming out soon. You may see some of our affiliated channels on cycling jerseys. It's real, folks. It's real. If you think I'm kidding, wait until you see what happens later in the season. We're looking at the sun in 193 angstroms here, and we see a bunch of coronal holes. Mainly south of the equator, one north of the equator. Now let's look at some other views. Here is the last 48 hours in 304 angstroms. And we do see a giant filament here, which has finally begun to dissipate there in the northeast limb, although it looks like it is still in effect. So we'll be keeping an eye on that. And otherwise, we are at a very low level of solar activity, although there is some ejecta flying around the solar system. Again, we will be starting a nonprofit probably this year, at which point your donations to the channel will become tax deductible. So we urge you to help us build our initial channel from the ground level. We appreciate it greatly. Let's look at the real-time solar wind. All right, so we see a slightly elevated solar wind density there at 12.84 protons per cubic centimeter. Solar wind speed continuing to rise up to 393 kilometers per second. We see no ongoing magnetic connection with those coronal holes, indicated by a near 180-degree phi angle. We're looking at more of a 315-degree phi angle there, awaiting coronal hole magnetic connections to significantly kick up the earthquake risk. Let's get a rundown of some more data at spaceweathernews.com. We see the X-ray flux is very low and quite flatlined. Very low magnetometer reading here. So that's something to keep an eye on throughout the day. And when I say ion, no pun intended. Now, NOAA is calling for a KP4, geomagnetic unrest, unsettled conditions there. We're looking for a KP of 4 today. That's what the warning said. I didn't do any analysis, but we're expecting a KP of 4, at least if we're following NOAA's predictions. Here we see this dip in the electron flux that we often see with protons coming in, and that's what would be associated with the high solar wind, not a big-time proton event. A couple charging hazards there, northern, south, and Central America. Nothing too crazy. And the F2 layer is looking a little bit perturbed there. Pretty discharge on the nighttime side, and some oddities in the middle of the sun side. You notice over southern India, there's an oddly discharged portion there. So that's a little bit anomalous. Here are your aurora forecasts, and these are expected to increase in size, especially if we see a KP of 4. And let's go to spaceweather.com. Some interesting stories here about if humans can sense magnetic storms, about building Faraday cages. So somebody's concerned about disaster preparedness. And by the way, the 10.7 centimeter radial flux is still down at 69. So while that is still above the forecast, it's much lower than it was, as we saw it rise all the way up to, oh, this is not updated here, folks. We did see this above 80 only about a week ago. So it's an increase in the 10.7 centimeter radial flux, and for that, we thank you. Here's the Gong 2 data. This is about 2 hours old here. And no real corroboration with this data and the GOES magnetometer at this point. Nothing to really report on this. Here are the geospace ground magnetic perturbations, and we see quite significant perturbations here at both poles. Again, the KP index is at 3 while this video is being made. We are expecting it to be up to 4 at some point today. Some significant magnetic pulses there. Here it is from a global perspective. Significant magnetic pulses. For new viewers who are not aware, we have 2 north poles right now, and we have a migrating south pole which is headed toward Western Australia. And here we have the geospace magnetosphere movies from space, as we are pretty spaced out on this channel. And we're going to see very high pressure on this. First we see the velocity. And keyword, magnetohydrodynamics. If you don't know what it means, we're going to cover it in a moment. But first we'll look at the density. Let me see those blue colors right around the planet, indicating a little higher density, as we usually see with a higher density solar wind. Again, we are around 12 protons per cubic centimeter. Here's the pressure. Quite high. And we do see some transfer from the bow shock to the magnetotail there, as there is current flowing through the planet and through you right now, believe it or not. On this channel, we do strive to allow people to understand that which is unseen. We will have links to all of these sites that we head to. And next, let's check out this one from scholarpedia.org, magnetohydrodynamics. If you don't know what it is, learn what it is. It's going to be very important in the upcoming rewriting of physics, where we achieve a new unified theory that ties together everything such as quantum mechanics, Newtonian physics, astrophysics, etc. We are talking about the fluid dynamics of electrically conducting fluids. So it's like fluid dynamics, but with magnets and fluid. Things like plasma fall into the realm of magnetohydrodynamics. And I'm sure all you Electric Universe folks are aware of why we're talking about plasma, right? Next, let's look at quakes at globalincidentmap.com. We are still experiencing a 6 and 7 magnitude drought as I learn how to talk. Let's just go down the rundown here for the last 9 hours. We see 2 4 magnitude pluses in China. We see a 4.5 in Somalia, a 4.6 in El Salvador, 4.4 in Argentina at depth, 4.6 in Mayotte, 5.2 in India, which I believe is the largest one of the past 24 hours, 4.3 in El Salvador, and that's it. So let me draw in the watch zone, because these areas are experiencing a huge earthquake drought. So I'll just draw it in real quick. This zone here, and this zone here Your 6 and 7 magnitude earthquake drought is going to end, and it could end today when those coronal holes connect. We're going to have big perturbations based on the fact that the KP is, we're going to have a low solar activity, and then we're going to have some big pulses. So have an earthquake plan if you live in those areas. Next, let's look at volcanoes. And today's list includes Karimsky with a 10,000-foot plume, Mount Ibu with a 7,000-foot plume, Bromo, 13,000-foot plume there, 7,000-foot plume in Dacono, Fuego, very light emissions possible, Revenador, emissions continue, Sabancaya, intermittent emissions, and Planchon Petrella, unable to detect. Quick weather rundown for our American viewers. Those in the lower 48, there's your U.S. Doppler radar, thanks to AccuWeather.com. And here is the water vapor map, which will give you a greater idea of what's going on in the upper atmosphere and what's pushing your weather around. Now, we do see some extremely dry air in the Northwest Caribbean there, excuse me, north of Cuba. And we see some convergence zones happening over Arizona and Colorado. Remember, dry air is in control of wet air. Dry air is more massive and typically colder. And the more massive it is, the more control it has over what's going on in the atmosphere. Let's give a quick shout out to Zooniverse.org, Galaxy Zoo Project. If you're not aware, it's the largest citizen science project in the world. We need human beings to classify galaxies. So head to here, make yourself a login, possibly get published in an astronomy journal. Look at this weird artifact, classify this galaxy, and advance science. Because that's what we're all about on this channel, and that's what the nonprofit organization is going to be about. Tying together multidisciplinary science into coherent, unified theory. India shoots down satellite, joining elite club of space powers. The U.S. has a space force because now that we've brought peace to Earth, we're going to have to bring peace to the galaxy. Anyway, India shot down a satellite. Congratulations, India. Well done. Now, not only can you nuke stuff, but you can shoot down satellites. Great plan. During a speech, Modi hailed India's arrival as a space power and heralded the country's unprecedented achievement. According to the Prime Minister, the satellite, which was in low Earth orbit, was shot down from 300 kilometers away in space. If you're critical of the government, as we are, they're performing a whole bunch of secret experiments that you don't want to know about. But if you like to be horrified, read this article. We'll leave links in the description. Here's one from phys.org. Astronomers investigate a supermassive black hole in the radio galaxy PKS 2251+11. Why are we showing you this? Because black holes aren't science. Black holes are the product of math equations, not observational evidence of any kind. In fact, here's a Sky Scholar video hosted by Dr. Pierre-Marie Robitaille, radiologist, Ohio State University, about how black holes aren't science. Let's take a random quote. So here's a portion where he talks about how stellar collapse is impossible. It would require a star to do work on itself. Mathematical analysis shows that if the center of a star is either liquid or partially so, there is no danger of collapse. The liquid center provides so firm a basis for the star as to render the collapse impossible.
It is only because astronomers treat the stars as ideal gases that they are permitted to collapse. Liquids and solids are essentially incompressible by definition, and that is why actual stars never collapse to make black holes.
Don't believe in black holes, folks, unless somebody observes one. The way science works is you make a hypothesis, you take some observations, you refine your hypothesis, make a theory, experiment again, make a new theory, make a new hypothesis, make a new experiment, see if you can repeat it. That's how science works. Black holes are math equations in search of observational evidence. I believed in them too for years, folks. I took astronomy in college. I know all about black holes and classical astronomy, and they're not real. Now, if you want to upgrade your bike, let's say you have a bike and you only want to just upgrade it, maybe make it a little faster, give yourself a little more power transfer, head to theveloshop.net. If you've never had clipless pedals and you don't know what they are, let me explain. Serious cyclists ride pedals that look like this. Now, there are a million different types, everything from Look to Shimano to Time to Egg Beaters, Crank Brothers, that is, Speed Play. There's a ton of different models. So let me just pick one here. For instance, let's see. You want to upgrade your bike, right? Let's say you've got a mountain bike. Check out this set of Look X tracks here, $60. Get yourself a set of cycling shoes, the cleats that go with them. Your power output will nearly double right off the bat. Because if you're riding flat pedals, you have zero up pull. So if you want to upgrade your bike, order some pedals and some shoes. You will be amazed at what it's like to have the bike attached to your feet. By the way, after you click in with these, you just put the cleat in and press down. To come out of the pedal, you just turn your foot. And that is a cheap way to upgrade your bike. You start riding these, you might fall over once, then you'll learn and you will fall in love. So again, folks, we urge you to contribute to our causes, as we are accomplishing a lot of things, looking at making this video creation stuff a full-time job. We're going to be sprinkling a little more humor in here when possible. We're going to be upgrading software. We're going to be quitting our job so I can be full-time and get out of the food supply chain. So it's all in the works. There's a lot of stuff happening behind the scenes, and we appreciate every possible support you can handle. $1 makes a difference, believe it or not. Now, we are going to be looking at paywalls. We're going to be designing some t-shirts pretty soon for people to purchase. So again, a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. Here's the sun on 171 angstroms. If you're unable to financially support our channel, please support it with a like, or by subscribing, or by sharing on your social media, as we are traditionally shadow banned. I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in. Thanks donors. Thanks subscribers, people who comment. We try to keep our comment section as interactive as possible, and while we are unable to respond to every single comment, we read every single comment. So thanks again, everybody. It'll never be now again. May the solar wind be at your back and the atherosclerosis absent from your veins. Remember, when you're staring at the sun, use the proper instruments and don't drink. But if you drink, don't drive.